everyone. Bonjour tout le monde. Welcome to Sport Beach 2025. How lucky are we? What a privilege it is to be here and to kick off Sport Beach with these two legends on the Croisette and staring at this beautiful, beautiful ocean. I think Sport Beach, thank you all for coming. It's great to see so many people. Sport Beach, like many of the marquee sporting events, is just getting bigger and bigger year on year, which is really a reflection of, the inflection point that sport is having in culture at the moment. It's quite extraordinary. So it makes this topic, everyone is here to hear from you both, given the convergence of sport in culture and commerce, and a lot of the lessons about leadership and performance are obviously applicable to everyone here, whether it's on the athlete side, the brand side, or the agency side. So just to set the stage, you're obviously two titans of your own industries and in your own right, alphas in every sense of the word. And I think it would be really, really helpful to set the stage to talk about your own personal motivation, right? What is the thing that really drove you and continues to drive you to really be at the head of your game? Noah, let's start with you as the literal leader of the pack and ahead of the pack. Ladies and gentlemen, the fastest man on the planet. I mean, that's just extraordinary. I don't know how you do it and how you do it so consistently. So I'd love to hear about your motivation.
Thank you. I'm actually going to make one slight correction. It's fastest man in the world. Unfortunately, I'm not the fastest man on the planet. That still belongs to Usain Bolt, as he's the world record holder. So got to give props to him. But yeah, fastest man in the world, for sure. Wow. Yeah, I'd say it's extremely intentional. When I first met my agent, I was coming out of high school. I was about 17 at the time, and I had met probably about 3 to 4 agents before him, and I would always come in like, hey, I want to turn pro, I want to be the fastest man in the world, but I want to transcend the sport. I don't want to be stuck in track and field. A lot of people, I don't believe, go in with that mindset from the very early on. They think they want to be the greatest and they want to win a bunch of medals, but they don't have the idea of, okay, on the other side, I also want to keep pushing on everything else outside of track and outside of my sport. So when I told a lot of agents that, they hit you with there's such and such and they've only made it to this high, and it's like, yeah, no, I'm good. No, you're not for me. I was determined to find that person, and when I finally did find my agent, I looked over at him and I'm like, I'm going to change the sport.
That's amazing.
And I'd like you to be there. Now, if you don't think you can do it, I'd like you to tell me now, because we're going to be doing things that people haven't touched before. And it was that intention on both of our sides that really pushed the idea that we have to, not just go in and hope that something happens great. It's you make something happen great.
Well, you just said something there, Noah, which I think is, just the clarity and the conviction right from the get-go, that you said you were going to be the fastest person in the world, and to change the sport. Where does that come from?
I'd say one of my biggest characteristics that defines me is creation. Like, I like to create. I like to make new things. I like to storytell. I like to, make a moment. And of course, track and field lets me do that, but there's so many other ways that I like to do that, whether it's in fashion or whether it's coming up with a great intro to a track meet, or it's saying, hey, instead of, everybody walking in the back row, let's go through the crowd. Let's get to the track through the crowd so that the crowd interacts with us as fans and us as athletes and enjoy the moment. They leave feeling like they experienced something amazing.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Frank, similarly, extraordinary accolades. You're the equivalent gold medalist of the marketing industry, and have had the recognition that many would really, aspire to. So perhaps you can tell us a little bit about your own motivation and the discipline of what it takes to have I guess, a championship mindset within the marketing industry and business.
Yeah, thanks, Karina. Well, first of all, I think it's hilarious that we're up here together in one sense because he's the fastest man alive, and I don't think I can get through a 40-yard dash right now. You know what I mean? Like, you know, without a face plant. What I love about Noah though, and we were in Paris together, I don't know, a couple years ago, and I said, okay, it's my turn. I said, I'm gonna put him in a booth, and we had a producer in there and have him do a rap song. I was like, he's gonna be so uncomfortable. It's gonna be interesting to watch this. He went in there and killed it. He killed it.
I mean, you're sort of teeing us up now. Are you gonna do that today?
Oh, no, not me. Karina's looking at me like I'm going to rap. No, that's not going to happen. No, but he did a great job. But it just showed, it's something that I think is really important for athletes today. It's your capability definitely on the field or on the track or on the pitch, but it's also your ability to connect to your audiences in different ways. And that creativity, which is in all of us, I think, it can be expressed in ways that are much more accessible today, and in ways that you can monetize. And so I think the fact that Noah had that vision early on was inspiring. And so the interesting thing, though, my career is not too dissimilar, except I didn't have the grand plan ahead of time. You know, I did not know where it was all going. What I knew was that I wanted to use business to help expand the potential of people. And so I started in music, and I felt like music was that. So Motown and Def Jam, you know, at critical times, you know, I was in, you know, in the heart of that as it was kind of growing up. And you know, I went to PepsiCo, bridging commerce and culture, and you know, I tried to do that across music, video gaming, film, etc. And even now in Visa, you know, the payments category, most people would say, you know, money. What's cultural about money? I actually think it's deeply cultural. How you pay and how you get paid is deeply cultural. How you earn your money, how you spend it, how you invest it, how you give it, that's culture. And so for me, it's been about finding that intersection of culture and commerce, and then kind of leading that way so that people can expand and fulfill their potential. That's been my compass throughout.
Yeah, I think that's super interesting. I want to pick up on a couple of things. Just to your point, if you've had one of the most richest, diverse resumes, really, within the industry, you know, from Harvard to hip hop. And I think many people talk about what it takes to get to the top. But when you have a dynamic arc in terms of your career like yours, right? Presumably one of the important and critical skills is being able to, you know, navigate change, your ability to seek out new opportunities or challenges. So it's less of that one single focus, but the ability to really pivot. Can you talk a little bit about that mindset?
Yeah, I mean, look, I mean, for me, I've got in my own career around change. So I looked for industries that were undergoing massive change and people who were willing to lead it. And I felt like, you know, given that I don't come from a traditional marketing background, started off as a lawyer, you know, and moved into to marketing. Before that, I was in music and the creative side. I was like, that's not going to be a traditional resume that will allow me to walk into traditional spots at the highest level. So I looked for change, because when there's change, no one knows what the outcome is going to be. But when there's change, you have the opportunity to invent the future. And so I spent a lot of time focusing on those areas. And so it's not too dissimilar from being an athlete for me in terms of how I thought about it, which is you have a destination that I'm trying to go to, but I focused on the process. Like, what are the skills you got to build? What are the steps you got to take? And just keep getting better, keep getting better, keep getting better, keep getting better. And I tried to do that as technology came in, which changes things. I tried to do that as culture was changing. And I just tried to learn and stay curious and get better and better and better through the process. So it's more the process, what we in Visa we call the power of small steps. And that's kind of, that's been the method for me in kind of continuing to advance across industries.
Well, I know one of the things that you've talked about before is like excellence as a, you know, as a mindset and a habit, and that process. Is that what you're getting to? Is that what you mean there?
Well, you know, so I see someone like Noah, and we were talking at the airport a couple of days ago, you know, and he was telling me about kind of the training pattern, which for me was really interesting, because you know, you have a process that allows you to become competent, and that's great, but then to get from competence to excellence, is a big leap. And then you get from excellence to greatness. Very few people can do that, but it requires maniacal focus, like relentless prioritization. And so for me, that it's very similar, I think, in terms of, and that's why I think an athlete can transition into business extremely well if they take the same principles that they apply to becoming excellent and then great in a sport. I apply the same things in business, but just mastering a different set of rules. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. To that point of the discipline, I think it's what's fascinating for many people here would be if Frank, I've used Frank's words, maniacal focus, right? So you obviously have to apply that level of focus to the big set piece moments, right? The Olympics, right? And crush that. But the time away from those moments, can you talk to us a bit about having the energy for those marquee events, but actually from race day to the everyday, what is it like?
Yeah, I'm actually going to pick off of what Frank was saying, you know, especially about, you know, change. I love that. Like, change is definitely where I strive in. And bringing it back to what it's like in between the Olympic years, you know, we have World Championship years. You know, some of my best moments have happened in between World Championships years. For example, 2023, I go out and I'm like, yo, I'm gonna win the 100, and I'm a 200 guy, and everybody's like, oh, 200 guy can't win the 100. You know, they did not like me because I was saying I'm gonna win the 100. And I was like,
who is this 200 guy saying he's going to win the 100?
Exactly. So not only that, but I was saying I'm going to win 3 medals. I'm going to win the relay, and I'm going to win the 100, and I'm going to win the 200. Again, nobody had done this since Bolt. So I'm like, yeah, that's going to be me. And not only was I so confident in myself, I convinced my agent that we needed to document this. So we went out, and we ended up having you know, Peacock as a partner, and we worked with a ton of other people to document the whole year, because we were determined that this was going to be, you know, the change that I needed to grow, not only in the sport, but outside of the sport. And I wanted people to be able to see this change as it was happening, to know that you don't have to be stuck in the box. And again, I'm reinventing myself because I know that after 2023 is 2024, which is an Olympic year, where the goal is to win all 3, the 100, the 200, and the 4x1. Unfortunately, COVID had its way with me, so that didn't happen. But, you know, obviously we were with a good start with winning the 100, which was something before 2023 I hadn't done before. So again, it's but going back to Frank with change, it's reinventing yourself. It's figuring out what are the minute details that you need to bring yourself from normal to great, and then great to excellence, because everybody can do it once. You know, and a one and done is nice and all, and it's a nice little underdog story, but everybody wants to know, can you do it twice? And then can you do it 3 times? And then after you've done it 3 times.
Or 6 times in your case.
6 times, exactly. It's constantly, how do I get the best out of myself? And doing what I did last year is not always going to breed the same result, because it's not the same environment.
I mean, I think a lot of us are here talking about the kind of business of sport. I've got a brilliant idea right here. If we could bottle the confidence and the commitment that you have, it's just absolutely extraordinary. But building off, I guess, the conversation around change and recognizing the moment that sport is having in culture and business. Obviously, you're talking about reinventing yourself and navigating change. Can you talk to us a little bit about, you've got big ideas beyond the track, what's coming down the pipeline?
So recently, as of Thursday, have you guys all seen Drive to Survive? All right, so then have you guys seen Sprint?
Yes.
Okay. So the people who made Sprint is Box to Box, and me and Box to Box have co-created a production company together in the plans to make projects that are not only just about sport, but the lives outside of sport, the things that go on in everyday life, the stories that just haven't been seen yet, and only an athlete's perspective can give. So we're pretty excited about that. It's still, super high off the ground. We're still putting a lot of ideas and throwing them at the wall, and we've got a few that we think are sticking, but always room for more ideas.
Congratulations. Well, I'm sure there'll be plenty of people giving you the ideas, but congratulations.
I'm going to pitch you one right now. No,
yeah, I was going to say, you're sandwiched between Frank and I, so by the time we leave this stage, we'll have a gazillion of ideas for you. Frank, kind of building off of that, like, you know, Visa obviously does lean into sport as a competitive advantage and an ability to, you know, the opportunity to engage people, to tell stories, to have big ideas as a brand. Can you talk about why, you know, why sport is important to the brand? You touched on the brand purpose a little bit, but also just like, you know, you play such an important role, whether it's, you know, FIFA World Cup coming, whether it's the Olympics. Would love to hear more.
I mean, so look, on one level, just in kind of a pure media level, sports is probably maybe the best area for a brand to integrate itself, because if you have an engaged audience, it's going to be live sports. If you're going to have someone that's going to actually pay attention to the interruption of a TV commercial, it happens in live sports. So I like it on that level alone. But to me, the bigger opportunity for brands, and you know, I'm one of the people who I don't really love this idea of like, hey, I'm just a proud sponsor of anything. I don't want to be a proud sponsor. I want to be a partner that has an exchange with either the athletes or the fans or the platform. And so what we try to focus on is move from being a sponsor to becoming more of a creator brand, where we're helping either athletes do things that they want to do, or fans experience something that they otherwise can't experience. So when I see Noah kind of creating, you know, the iconic production company, which is a great name, by the way. You know, for me, that's exciting because that's an area that intersects with what we do, and we can help in that area and build it, and we get real credit with athletes for doing that. If I can expand the fan experience, give them access, or give them content, or give them community in ways that they otherwise can't have it, that's value that we're adding. So if I'm adding value to the fan experience or the athlete experience, that's how I measure success of our various sponsorships.
I think that's great. And, you know, just obviously you two have worked together and partnered together before, and even in the green room, you could sense, you know, a genuine and authentic partnership. So it feels like very much, you know, an emotional contract rather than just a transactional one.
Well, I honestly, I just want to know how Noah's on the stage not sweating at all. and
That's because he's wearing breathable attire.
Well, I'm from Florida, so sweating is what I do. You know, learning how to keep cool in hot situations. You know, not letting people see you being nervous. You know, that's just what I do.
I feel like we're in a sauna right now. But anyway.
It feels normal to me.
I don't quite know how to do a segue
from normal temperature.
No, but in all seriousness, you know, the reason I love the partnership with Noah is because he's not coming at it from the perspective of what's in my agreement and what are my obligations. I'll fulfill that and then move on. It's more of what can we do together to build and to help each other, and that's, to me, that's the spirit of the kind of partnerships you want, because then both sides benefit in ways that go far beyond the contract. And so that's what I love about the partnership.
I definitely agree. I remember when me and Frank first met in Paris, you know, and, you know, I'm hearing all his accolades, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is somebody who's been not only just, you know, in the business space, that's dealing with money, he's been with music, he's been with artists, you know, he's been on the sports side, and hearing that is like music to my ears, because it lets me know that he understands the perspective of not just one consumer, but of many. And he understands the other side. When an athlete hears that they're able to do something that they want, or that they're able to push the boundaries of what's just written on the paper, oh my gosh, you can't see it, but they're gleaming from ear to ear in the background, thinking, this is the one that's going to believe in me.
I love that. Do you want a little hug on stage? I mean, I think, you know, joking aside, obviously the theme of this topic, right, alphas, right, which obviously has amazing connotations in terms of conviction and determination and boldness, but also in some scenarios can carry some negative connotations, right? It can be a little bit aggressive or individualistic, but clearly that's not the case. And I think, I always say, if you want to be a leader, you need people to follow you. So can you talk a little bit more about how you bring people along with you? You know, you have such clarity and confidence, but what's the role of team, partnership? How do you make sure that you bring people with you? I'll open it up to either of you, both of you.
Yeah, I'll go first. Okay. I have two different teams. You know, I'm, of course, track and field side. I have my agent, I have my medical staff, I have my manager, my family, and they're there to make sure that everything that I'm doing in that space is, you know, one, done well, and two, helps me keep my head on straight and keep the goal going. You know, it's easy to get distracted. I mean, it's very easy to win an Olympic medal, and everybody wants you here and there. And then I got my coach on the phone saying, "Hey, I need you back at practice." "Yep, you're right, coach. I got to get back to practice." And having that trust in him that he's not here to, you know, nag me and not let me take advantage of the moment, but he knows that as soon as I stop winning, they're going to stop coming. And that's one side. And to the other is, you know, of course, the management side and learning what pieces I need. As I go through life, it's like, okay, I'm trying to absorb as much information. You know, we talked in the back. I'm not the biggest fan of traditional learning. You know,
you were telling me you loved school.
School. Let's just say my ADD and dyslexia were double teaming me in the tests back home. So it wasn't very good for me.
Who needs school when you can run like you do?
We do need school, but learning how children are educated is way more important than just throwing information at them and hoping that it sticks, which is what happened to me a lot. Yeah. And when I, you know, came into the world, I was like, okay, I know what my skill set is. I know what I'm good at. I need people who are going to fill the gaps that I don't have. And if you believe that you don't have any gaps, then, oh my gosh, you are a bigger fool than I thought. Yeah. Because we all need help, and we all need a team. And again, even like right now, it's like, okay, what do I not have? And again, going to change. If I want to grow, what do I not have? What do I need to learn? What do I need to put myself in to make myself uncomfortable so that I can become knowledgeable in that sense?
Yeah. Frank.
Yeah. Totally agree with that. You know, when I first saw the subtitle to this panel, Alpha, I was ambivalent about it, honestly. And I was like, you know, because it does connotate in some level this idea of dominance, you know, and which I like and dislike. But what settled it for me though was this idea that there's the alpha in all of us, and it's not so much about being an introvert or extrovert or being, you know, shy or outgoing. It's, do you have in you this idea of the courage to lead and the capability to lead? And both those things can actually be developed. You know, there's a science behind courage, actually, and there's a science behind development. So the name actually works for me in the end. But the thing I want to pick up that Noah talked about, and that I really believe is that excellence requires help. You know, you remember Malcolm Gladwell wrote, I forget which book it was, and he said, hey, 10,000 hours to master something, right? Yeah, the outliers. And that's probably true. But if you did 10,000 hours by yourself with no one helping, it's impossible for you to reach excellence and greatness. You need help. You know, sometimes it's coaches, sometimes it's family. You know, sometimes, you know, like Nina will tell me, like, you know, don't stop feeling yourself. Janelle might do the same thing for you too, right? And so check you once in a while. All that helps you to cross that threshold from competence to excellence to greatness. And so this notion of doing it alone, no matter what you're in, sports, business, entertainment, you look at everyone that, at least that I've encountered, that have reached the level of excellence and then to greatness, they've had that team that's helped them along the way.
Yeah. I mean, I'm actually gutted that I'm staring at the clock and I'm like, this is just a disappointment because I feel like we've only just scratched the surface. But to the point of, you know, everything is constant learning. That's what I get from both of you, right? And you know, whether it's keep the goal going, whether it's excellence is a mindset, that ability to constantly learn and change and evolve, and that's what it feels like it drives both of you. I mean, everyone is here. This is the beginning of the week. We're all here for various reasons, but the most important thing, I think, is to leave Cannes with new learnings, right? And as well as inspiration. So if I could ask you a parting bit of knowledge or advice, whether that's one thing that everyone could start doing or stop doing in order to be ahead of the pack. Noah, perhaps you could start.
Sure. I mean, it's funny because I get a lot of kids who'll come up to me and you're like, oh, how do I run this better? How do I do that better? And unfortunately, I can't tell you because I've never seen you run. So, but I always try to give them something. And, there are a few ones that I give. And one, it was, I posted at the end of the Olympics, I have ADD, I have dyslexia, I have allergies, I have asthma. I have all these things that could let people know that I shouldn't be here. But despite all of that, I am here. I am at the top. Despite, that didn't define me. That's just characteristics of me, but that didn't define where I am. If you have something that you feel is a characteristic that's defining you, I encourage you to get rid of that notion. I encourage you to get rid of that ideal, because you can change yourself into who you want to be. And that's why I ended it with, why not you? What's stopping you from being the best version of yourself? And then the last one I would say, which plays on that, is get comfortable with being uncomfortable. When you throw yourself into the fire, yeah, you're gonna burn a little bit, but you're gonna learn how to keep cool after a while. After a while, you'll stop sweating. And after a while, you'll get comfortable with it, and you'll be like, okay, this is what I need to do. This is the directions that I need. These are the people that I need to keep close to me. These are the people I need to keep away from me. This is the mindset that I need to move forward with. And of course, it's gonna be trial and error, but another great quote that I saw, I'm gonna get rid of it real quick because I know you gotta talk, but when you start working out, it's gonna feel horrible, but that is actually the beginning of you getting better.
Woo! Frank, bring us home.
I'm not going to say anything beyond that. I think that's beautifully said, except for the workout piece. I was with you up to that piece. No, I love that. I have nothing to add to that except maybe one thing, which is do less and obsess. Which is there's so many things coming at us every single day, and Noah and I have both been talking about continuous learning. So you adapt to change, but it's learning the things that matter and going deep on it, as opposed to just scattering yourself across a bunch of different things and trying to become, a light expert at a bunch of different things. Go deep. And so if I'm here at Cannes right now, pick something, prioritize something, and go deep, so that your conversations are richer as a result of that. And you're focusing on the people that actually can help deliver that, and you'll attract that energy because you're focused in that particular area.
Well, I think it's obviously very difficult to continue to lead ahead if you think you've already arrived, and you both are, amazing role models for that continuous learning. So thank you very much, Noah. Thank you very much, Frank. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.